Too many people keep asking me about Threads. I don't care about Threads. What is this sewing platform everybody's suddenly so interested in? And no, it's not so simple as just I want Elon to win and I don't like Zuckerberg. It's a fairly complicated subject, and I'm going to explain my rationale behind it now. Let's begin. So I hate to brag, but I've been doing this for a while, okay? I've seen a lot of platforms come and go in my time, and especially a lot that have come from Meta. And to be honest with you, I have seen Zuckerberg time and time again basically buy out his competition or copy his competition, like blatantly without even trying. And usually it doesn't work out too well, to be honest with you. I think the main key when figuring out if a platform is going to be a success or not comes down to the sustainability. How often are people staying there and sticking there? And the truth is, all social media has pros and cons. There's not like one platform that I think is flawless. They all suck for their own separate different reasons, but they all have their own separate pros and cons as well. And I don't think there's one social media that's going to rule them all. I think each social media has its own strengths and prioritizes its own niche, and that attracts a certain personality or a certain type of person, and it deflects and scares away a different type of person who's interested in social media for a different purpose. I think the flawed premise of Instagram Threads is trying to convince a bunch of Instagram users that they should all become Twitter users, but just not with Twitter. The first reason I'm fairly ticked off by the whole concept of Threads is because Instagram is not a Meta product. It was a startup company that I was personally a big fan of when it first started. It had this big emphasis on being minimal and clean. It was a social media focused on photography first. It was all just about sharing photos, and it was a lot more artistic slash like niche, if kind of a smaller personal site. But then Meta, of course, bought it because it was picking up a lot of traction and they were worried about Facebook losing its relevance. So they said, hey, let's just buy out the apps that everybody is leaving us for. This also includes WhatsApp, which was a huge threat to Facebook Messenger. Hey, we don't like people leaving our platform. Let's just buy it. We own you now. You're ours. And then they turned Instagram into a much more complicated app that is not so much focused on being minimal and clean and just having a photographer's emphasis, but they tried to integrate as much as they could Snapchat features like stories and reels because Snapchat didn't want to sell themselves. Facebook saw a bunch of people leaving their platforms. Hey, you're all using Snapchat now. So you know what they did? They came up with their own version of Snapchat because they couldn't buy them, called Slingshot, which no one remembers and everyone forgot about, despite the fact that it was essentially in the exact same position that Threads is now. Everyone defending Threads that I'm seeing right now is saying, oh, well, Facebook has all this power. They own Instagram. They own these really popular social media sites. They can just easily integrate one of their existing apps into this new app, which duplicates another popular social media. In this case, it was Snapchat. Today, it's Twitter. And people go, oh, well, they've got so much money and power behind it. They're definitely going to get people to switch over and move to Slingshot instead of Snapchat, right? Because it's so integrated with Facebook already. And they had to learn the painful lesson that I also learned when I tried to switch to Twitch for a lot of my live streaming. People don't like switching platforms. It doesn't matter how good that other platform is. It doesn't matter how easy you make it to switch to that platform. People don't want to switch, and situations can be really, really bad on the existing, established platform, which could suck. As much as I defend and praise YouTube, they still make a lot of mistakes. They still got rid of the dislike button. They got rid of the DMs feature, which I loved. YouTube has a very, very broken copyright system, and we complain about YouTube all the time. All the bots in the comments. It's really frustrating and annoying. You notice it doesn't result in everybody leaving for Vimeo or leaving for Floatplane. You got your little alternatives here and there, but ultimately people don't like downloading a separate app. People don't like having another account. And that's why no one is using Slingshot today. Facebook shut it down because not that many people were using it, despite the fact that it was a carbon cut copy of Snapchat, and Facebook had all of this brand power and Instagram ownership and was trying to easily integrate it. And we had a fairly similar situation to what we're at right now when IGTV came out. Yes, this was originally a separate app, and when it first launched, everyone was talking about it like it was a YouTube alternative, saying the same things we're saying now. Oh, they have all this power now. You don't have to use a separate account. You can easily transition from Instagram to IGTV. This is going to replace video content. Every YouTuber is going to switch over to IGTV now because it's more popular, and we can leave YouTube because YouTube sucks and doesn't really go anywhere. They tried their best to hijack hijack that Instagram brand power, which they didn't earn, by the way. They just bought it off, and now easily try to transition people. Okay, download another app, please. Okay, check out IGTV, please. And it doesn't work out. So what do? They cancel IGTV as a separate app, and then they integrate it into the regular Instagram app because they couldn't get people to move the platform. So instead, they just alter and adjust the current platform, which I think a very similar thing could happen with Threads based on the activity of it. I can't claim to know the future. I can just speculate and guess. But it's very easy when a new social media launches, if it's fresh and new and no one's heard of it before, to start talking about it. And ironically, from what I've seen, most people on Threads are all just kind of talking about Threads and Twitter. There's not so much discussion about anything else. It's just like your friend is building a new house and they like just painted the bedroom and you're walking in. Wow, okay, look at this new setup. This is cool. This is different. I've never seen this before. And then you stand there for a couple hours and you're like, okay, at the end of the day, this is just another room. And then you're going to go back to living your life the way you normally did. Ironically, there's a lot of discussion about Threads on Twitter, which I think says a lot about how much Threads is just literally intending, based on the timing of this whole Elon Musk Twitter acquisition, that, oh, well, a lot of people don't like Twitter right now, so let's just carbon cut copy it, just like we did Snapchat, just like we tried to replicate TikTok with IG Reels and IGTV. Let's just copy what others have done and use our brand power to try to make it feel like the new thing. But the truth is, I think the vast majority of people on Instagram are using it because they like Instagram. They want Instagram to be the way it has been. That's what they're comfortable with. If you try to convince people that are on Instagram that they should be on a Twitter clone, they're just going to be annoyed and they're just going to be comparing it to Twitter constantly. And ultimately, why would you take the carbon cut copy of something when you can easily just get the real thing, which is Twitter? And for the record, I'm not trying to say Twitter is blameless here. I didn't think Elon Musk buying it was a good idea, and just to set the record straight before I get a bunch of people claiming I'm an Elon Musk fanboy, I have multiple times and on the record said I want Elon Musk to leave Twitter. I also want him to leave Tesla. I think that would be refreshing. I wish he would shut up about all of these robo-taxi claims that he keeps getting wrong over and over again. I don't agree with most of the changes he's made on Twitter. The main reason I'm still using Twitter is simply because that's where I get the bulk of my news. I prefer the chronological timeline. It has an iPad and a Mac app, which Threads doesn't. Threads doesn't even exist in the European Union at this point, which I think kind of severely limits its reach. But the lesson I've learned over the years from trying to get my audience to move to different platforms is that it's really, really difficult to do that. I still, to this day, believe that Twitch has a lot of tools and settings that are much better for live streaming than YouTube does, but even after years and years of streaming over there, I could only get a tiny fraction of my YouTube audience over to Twitch. And I've seen the same thing happen when people were boasting about moving from Twitch to Mixer. Everyone was like, oh yeah, Mixer's the next big thing. Mixer's gonna be cool. It has all of this Microsoft brand power and Mixer's way better than Twitch. And then they shut down and everyone kind of falls back where they were before, or they end up on YouTube again. So I've been on Twitter for 14 years now. There's so much history there. There's so many old tweets that people still bring up and refer to. It's where I get the bulk of my news, and it's also where the bulk of my audience is. So I'm not like in love with Twitter. I still think there's a lot of things about it that are broken that I would change. I hate all of the rate limits that Elon enacted, and I hate the whole pay for verification thing. I think that's stupid. But also, to be fair, I didn't like the way Twitter was being managed before Elon took over. I thought they were doing it poorly and it was not running at a profit, and they're honestly lucky that Elon was willing to spend way more money than he should have on that app to actually turn it around and make it profitable. And yes, there's some growing pains during that process, like the rate limits and the ads and a lot of the functionality not working anymore. Like, they haven't updated the Twitter for Mac app in a while, but it's working fairly stable for me, and it's a lot more minimal and clean that way. Like, nobody's verified on the Twitter for Mac app. I kind of love it that way. So I'm by no means saying that Twitter is perfect. What I'm trying to say is, when it comes to these new Twitter clones like Mastodon, Blue Sky, Hive, and even Truth Social, if you want to acknowledge that elephant in the room, none of these things take off because they're all trying to emulate a existing service that people are already using and are already comfortable with. And if people want to use a site like Twitter, I think they're just going to use Twitter. And I think when these apps first launch, it's very easy to jump on the hype train. Okay, it's brand new. Look at how similar it is. Wow, here we are. We're in a new place. And then the interactions aren't that good. Not as many people as you were hoping to be there are there. So you end up flocking back to Twitter and tweeting more about how Threads is kind of weird. Essentially, Essentially what I'm trying to say is the success of a social media will be dictated by how it can sustain itself with time, not how quickly it blows up in the news really, really fast. That seems to be the case with Threads right now, just like everybody wants to talk about it, I guess because there's not that much other tech news to talk about. It's kind of like pouring gas on the fire. It lights up and it catches flame really, really fast, and then it dies off and it doesn't sustain itself all too long, like we've seen with much of the other Twitter clones. And no, I don't think just because it has that Instagram brand power that suddenly makes it last longer. We've seen evidence of Facebook not being able to keep brand new social medias that hijack the Instagram branding alive. Ultimately, I'm just glad Zuckerberg didn't end up buying Twitter, because it's refreshing to not have one company in charge of everything, right? Like, it's a little bit annoying to me that Meta, who basically just buys up all these companies and makes them worse, not only do they own the most popular messaging app in the US, Facebook Messenger, but they also own the most popular messaging app in the world, WhatsApp, and they own Facebook, which is still one of the biggest social media sites on the planet, and they own Instagram, and pretty much all they've got competing with them is YouTube and TikTok. And I don't think it should all just be Google and Meta owning everything. I'm still kind of in favor of Twitter being a separate, independent thing. And no, I don't love the way Elon Musk is managing it. I will at least acknowledge that it is better for one billionaire trying to preserve free speech, which I still think there's a lot of flaws in his argument about that, but I get the intention of, we want to have a more open free speech platform, so I'm going to buy it to preserve that, versus a company like Meta or Zuckerberg basically saying, we're going to buy this company because it's competing with our companies. Twitter wasn't really competing with Tesla or SpaceX or Neuralink or anything Elon Musk was focused on. This was not him just buying out the competition. This was him buying an app that he loved and that he used and appreciated, and he just didn't want to see change all that much, opposed to Mark, who's just like, everybody's leaving our crappy platforms. They're leaving for Snapchat. They're leaving for Instagram. Okay, copy them or buy them. Just throw money at our competition and stifle it, and then make it worse so that we can say, haha, gotcha, we got you back. And on top of all of this, it is difficult managing all my different YouTube channels and all of my different Twitter accounts. So I've actually scaled down a bit. Like, that's why I left Discord. It was taking too much of my time, and it was getting way too difficult to manage between like who to ban, who to mute, who to not mute, who to unban, who to moderate, who to not moderate. So many voices in my ears all the time telling me, here's how I think you should manage the platform. And I was like, I just don't have the time for this anymore. So that's why all of my focus right now is on YouTube and Twitter. YouTube is where most of you guys found me and discovered me, and Twitter is where I get the bulk of my news and updates for my videos. Outside of that, it's all just kind of time wasting for me. I can't really justify the existence outside of those two apps. But if Twitter gets worse and worse, which is definitely a possibility, and no, I'm not paying for Twitter Blue, and I haven't been in love with most of the changes Elon has made. If I was planning on leaving Twitter, I wouldn't go to Threads, I wouldn't go to Mastodon, I would go to YouTube. YouTube has community posts. They let you post pictures there, they let you post text there, and I love YouTube for obvious reasons. That's probably how you're watching this. I've been using the service for well over 15 years, and I spend more time on YouTube than any other app or any other streaming service. So many people that I keep up with on here, and so many videos that I watch, and now getting more into shorts, and I post more in the community page day to day, and I'm interacting with our channel members more frequently through the community tab. So if I were to leave Twitter, YouTube would definitely be my first choice, not some Twitter clone that is just trying to copy the big thing. I don't think that's sustainable. I don't think that's gonna last, just like how Facebook's Slingshot didn't last, and just like how Instagram's IGTV didn't last. Honestly, I won't be surprised if Threads gets really, really popular in its first couple weeks because it's just the new cool thing, but then because of the less interactions, less of a community, then it's just gonna die off. So Instagram starts integrating the Threads into the Instagram app itself, and slowly but surely they just turn Instagram into essentially what Facebook already is, a site that lets you post text, pictures, videos. Instagram will basically just turn into Facebook because that's how Meta's business model works. They just kind of lasso and rope people back into their platform without trying to make their platforms better. They just try to copy and buy out whatever you're leaving for. I don't like that business model. I don't want to reward that. I hate what they did to the Oculus branding and the Oculus team. I don't like that choice, and I'm not saying that Musk is perfect either, but I at least prefer the history and the legacy that Twitter has over there compared to starting from scratch with a brand new platform that is just trying to be a carbon cut copy. I don't want to reward that. YouTube and Twitter feel more like OG social media that has been around since the early days, and that's where most of our legacy in history is. That's where most of my audience is. So no, I will not be joining Threads, and I'm honestly on the fence about getting rid of my Instagram pages. The only reason I have them is essentially because I know they're such big platforms. I put those pages there so that others don't try to impersonate me. But honestly, I'm not even that worried or caring about impersonation on Threads because I could be wrong, but I predict the platform will be mostly dead in a year or two. And everyone will act like, well, of course, it was obvious. That was never going to work out. You all say that now, even though back when IGTV came out or Slingshot came out, everybody was defending it like, oh no, this is the next big thing. Facebook's got money and power. They can push this. Yeah, you'll all act like you saw it coming a year from now. But no thanks. I don't want to reward Meta. And if I do end up leaving Twitter, which is a real possibility, I'll be over here on YouTube. So what do you guys think? Feel free to let me know down in the comments below. And thank you to everybody supporting this channel directly. Seriously, helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. This is your Appleseed here. I'll see you all in the next one.